What's going on YouTube? JT is Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my DC comic book reviews. And in this video, we're going to be talking about DCeased, War of the Undead Gods, issue number 8 of 8. This is it. This is the finale to DCeased. 3, 4, 5 maybe series in the makings. We had some one-shots. We had Unkillables. We had Hope at World's End. We had the first DCeased. We had Dead Planet. And now the conclusion to War of the Undead Gods, the end of Tom Taylor's epic DCeased saga. And for the most part, I did enjoy the issue. I do feel it is a little bit rushed in some instances, and there are still some lingering plot threads which we're just never going to get the answer to. Namely one that I think took place in Hope at World's End, where there was that whole thing with Talia taking Steph somewhere, and we never got a follow-up to it. There was no tease. There was absolutely nothing. Are they still alive? Are we ever going to find out any answers? I don't exactly know, but I can tell you this, it just seems like we're going to just never get an answer to that unless somebody asks Tom Taylor, hey, what's going on with this thing, man? But it is what it is. So, yes, this is the conclusion to the story. Art's is done by several people on the issue. I believe it was Trevor Hairsine and a few others. But basically, this is the conclusion. This is how they're going to take the fight to Erebos, or however you want to pronounce it. And I guess they're going to have to get into severe spoilers at this point. Damian makes the ultimate sacrifice to end this conflict once and for all. He has a scene with Cassie right beforehand. He doesn't tell her his plan. He doesn't tell anybody his plan. The only one who knows his plan is Cyborg. John gets him a new Batman suit. They have to kind of go on the brink of death to find where Erebos is. And Damian's conclusion is, okay, if Erebos is anti-life in essence, and the only way to do that is to find just the life equation. So he basically fuses himself with the life equation, makes the ultimate sacrifice. John has a final conversation with John about things. John just had to go and say goodbye to his best friend, and he said, I thought you'd make a great Batman. And Damian basically makes the final sacrifice, and in doing so, he kind of becomes the universe in kind of a strange way. He never told anybody about it. You have John and Cassie crying at the very end of the issue. Superman and all that kind of is off to do their own thing, and Alfred just kind of watches on. He's like, my bats, my sons, my whole universe are all basically gone at this point. And yeah, that's how DCeased ends. It does feel a little bit rushed in some ways. I wouldn't say fully rushed. It feels like it kind of concluded a little bit quickly. I feel like DCeased War of the Undead Gods could have gone on for another issue or two longer, to where we could really kind of drag out the big emotional beats at the end. It moves by at a really, really quick pace in terms of these Elseworld storylines. I don't know why it was only 8 issues. I think you could have probably stretched this out another maybe 2 issues, if you will, because like I said, there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of concluding story arcs you could do. You maybe could have had a little bit more of an epilogue to conclude the story. I guess it is kind of hard sometimes to conclude a big, huge comic book story. This one felt in some ways that it did it a little bit too quickly for my liking, but I do enjoy the final sacrifice bit. It's kind of the Iron Man and Avengers Endgame type route. I think it is cool that Damian is ultimately the one who saves the entire universe and has to make the big sacrifice play. I think it's a good conclusion to his story. He doesn't necessarily get the happy ending, but he did what he had to do to save his friends and family and various loved ones. And I think it's a good conclusion. If you have to have anyone do the big sacrifice play, I think it was a neat choice to have him be inevitably the one who has to do so. Poor Alfred, though, he's stuck now as the Spectre, and basically everyone he's cared about is pretty much gone. I think the only Bat family member left is Cassandra Cain, and then Alfred. I don't know if anyone else is left at this point, but yeah, so I did enjoy DCeased as an overall series. I think I like the first one the most overall. Dead Planet's probably the weakest, and then this one's better than that. It definitely is a little bit more action. It definitely is pretty action-packed, and it moves along at a pretty quick pace, so the story never really drags in any certain instances, although I think in some cases you probably would have benefited a little bit from having just maybe another issue or two to kind of flesh out this conclusion a little bit. Maybe we could have had more of an epilogue with the other characters, because basically they kind of hug, and then Alfred kind of has one quick little speech at the end, and that's the conclusion to the story. I think, in my eyes, I think maybe like one more issue to where we can let the emotions really play out and maybe have more of an epilogue to it would have been a little bit stronger. But again, you're ending a story that you've been going on for a couple of years now. This is the third main DCeased book. You had Hope It's World's End, you had Unkillables, and I think you had another special in there. DCeased was a pretty big, expansive thing. I think the first era of DCeased books was the best because you did have some spinoffs to kind of tell more of the story leading into it. Then when you got to Dead Planet and War of the Undead Gods, they felt a lot more rushed in terms of development, and character changes just weren't fully explained as well as I think they could have been if we would have had more spinoff series that sort of tell the story and how the characters have evolved towards a certain point. If we had that, I would have probably liked the conclusion a little bit more. But I think as it stands, I think DCeased War of the Undead Gods does end on a high note for the most part. I think maybe if it was a little bit longer, I think it would have been a bit stronger. The artwork is quite good. It's kind of weird because I saw people just simping over some of these designs in that, which is very interesting. So that kind of made me chuckle a little bit. But I think DCeased, for the most part, was a pretty successful Elseworld storyline. At least it had a more satisfying conclusion than DC versus vampires, I tell you that. And I think, like I said, for the most part, it is a win. So if you've enjoyed DCeased, you'll probably come to us enjoy this conclusion. I know some people are going to be very sad about how it kind of ends, if you're a fan of Damien, I suppose. But I like it. I didn't really get like too choked up or anything like that. I think it just was like, okay, this is an Elseworld. This is a satisfying conclusion for his character, kind of making the big Iron Man sacrifice play, as seen in Avengers Endgame, if you will. And I think it's a good way to go out. And I like how his conversation with John kind of mirrors the earlier DC stuff. So I thought that was a nice little touch for the Super Sons. If like one of them had to watch the other one go, I think that's a good way to do it. And you normally expect somebody like Superman to make the big sacrifice play. I think it's cool that Batman, or Damien in this instance, is the one to do so. But yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts on DCeased War of the Undead Gods, issue number 8. I like the issue overall, and I think it's a good conclusion for the most part for DCeased, although I am disappointed that some story elements are never fully addressed or we never got answers to. Mainly the one from Hope at World's End with Steph and Talia, because it felt like they were setting something up there, and we never got any explanation for what happened with those two characters. I know I've probably talked about this pretty much since I started covering this latest DCeased thing, but I'm like, we better get a conclusion to that story because you just left it lingering and just never answered. I have no idea what happened there. Maybe Tom Taylor forgot, but who knows? But yeah, I think this one works for the most part. So if you have any thoughts on DCeased War of the Undead Gods, issue number 8 of 8, let me know in the comment section down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, all that other fun stuff. I got a lot of comic book reviews coming out between today, tomorrow, and this week in general. So I'm going to cover this one. I'm going to cover the latest issue of The Flash, and then you'll probably have to wait till the evening to get more of the comic book reviews because I do have to get into work and all that this morning. So, yeah, that's all I have to say. Stay tuned. I got the Flash video coming up right after this one, and then there'll be a bit of a gap in the day, and then I'll have to get back to covering more stuff later on. So look forward to all that stuff. All right, as always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.